Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ANGIE podcast. This is a series of podcasts where we look at issues emerging from the use of nanotechnology in targeted drug delivery in clinical environments. I am Maria Vliora, a molecular biologist, and I will be hosting this podcast. The ANGIE project was initiated in 2020, and it develops a novel approach for treating strokes by magnetically steering microrobots inside the brain to the stroke site. The ANGIE project has received EU funding through the Research and Innovation Action of European Union and has partners across Europe. Today, in this episode, I'm more than happy to be joined by Mr. Fabian Landers, a mechanical engineer and an excellent scientist that participates in the ANGIE project through ETH Zurich by coordinating the development and manufacturing of the drug delivery platform. So, hello, Fabian. Nice
Hello.
to have you here.
Thanks
Would
for
you like
having
to
me.
tell us a few things about yourself and how you're involved in the ANGIE project?
Yes, sure. So by training, I'm a mechanical engineer, as you said, and I did my bachelor's and master's here at ETH in Zurich. And already my bachelor's, I was quite fascinated by microfabrication. So seeing in lectures that you can take structures, that you can make structures that are like a tenth of the width of a human hair, was just fascinating to me. So after that, I went for an internship to Taiwan, where I worked in the field of microfabrication as well. And obviously in Taiwan, you have the biggest and most amazing companies for this, like TSMC, which are the world leader, I would say, in chip fabrication. And then afterwards, I did thesis in the lab of Professor Nelson and Professor Pane at ETH, also in the field of nano and microfabrication. And I also had the opportunity to join Professor Rob Wood at the Harvard Microrobotics Lab. And we also developed small-scaled robotic platforms. And then, yeah, I came back to ETH. I liked it too much in the lab of Brad and Salvador, of Professor Pane and Professor Nelson. I came back there, and then I think a year after I started my PhD there, we started with the ANGIE project. And it's a very fascinating project. It's so much fun, and I think we're also doing some work that can really help people. So that's very motivating.
So it was a nice journey, and you came back through this ANGIE project in the lab. But
Absolutely,
before we go to the project and to the actual what actually the project does, you said you work with micro robots. What does actually micro robotics mean?
So that's a very good question. The answer is that the term microrobotics isn't officially defined. So it's a very broad definition. But I think at least by the philosophy of our lab, we go back to Richard Feynman, and this is a very famous physicist. In 1956, he held a lecture at Caltech, and this lecture was entitled "There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom." And the main message of this lecture was, I mean, we as a human species, we always try to go bigger and further, right? We go to the moon, we go to the Mars, we have telescopes in space. And this is very, very interesting. But what Feynman said was that there's an equally interesting amount of things going on the small scale, right? So if you take, I mean, I don't need to tell you, but like if you take small organisms, and these things are fascinating. So the idea is that making small things can also impact us on our human scale, right? And if you look at smartphones, for example, the amount of computing power we have in them nowadays goes back to manipulating things on a very small scale, right? This microfabrication was really founded by Richard Feynman. And what we do at the Multiscale Robotics Lab is that we apply these ideas, these concepts also to robotics. So moving things on the small scale, manipulating things on the small scale. And I would say Brad was really one of the pioneers of this field. He was really There's really, I would say, at least 2 decades worth of research under his belt in this field and figuring out how things work. And it's very interesting because obviously physics don't really change, but different forces, for example, become important at the small scale. So if you think about an insect doesn't care about gravity, but an insect cares, for example, about air resistance a lot. Mm-hmm. And it took us, I would say, more than 2 decades to understand all this and to build small scale robots that can efficiently locomote and be controlled. And now we are at a very, very cool time point, because now we really make this pivot. We make this transition from the lab into the hospitals, right? We want to take everything we've learned over this long time and finally bring it into the hospital and use it for medical application. And that's kind of the journey that we made in microrobotics, and that's kind of where we're going also in the future, hopefully.
Well, that's fascinating. And how do microrobots get into the ANGIE project? I mean, the ANGIE project is about targeted drug delivery. Could you explain us a bit more about how nanorobots have been combined into this project?
Yes, for sure. So, as you said, we're talking about drug delivery, and maybe as the concept, what this means is that in the normal case, when let's say we want to treat a disease in the brain, right? So normally, in the big majority of cases, what we do in order to get a drug up into the brain is that we put it into the bloodstream. So the bloodstream is anyway a transport, a highway that our body naturally has in order to transport stuff, also to transport it into the brain. And so we utilize this highway, and we put the drug into the bloodstream, and some of the drug reaches in the brain and treats whatever we want to treat, right? This is what we call systemic use of drugs. The downside of this is that a lot of it doesn't end up in the brain, actually. A lot of it ends up in the liver. A lot of it ends up at other places where these drugs, when they are maybe a bit more aggressive, they can also do harm. And that's what we then refer to as side effects, right? And the concept of targeted drug delivery is that we kind of take these drugs and we load them onto a microrobot. And now we let the microrobot travel to the specific location that we want to deliver the drug. And then it releases the payload there. And by doing so, we can reduce the systemic dose drastically and at the same time have a higher dose at the site where we want it. So it's kind of just a delivery system, but we think it's going to make a big difference.
Okay, and what disease are you targeting? I mean, I said in the beginning you're targeting stroke, but is there any other disease that could be targeted with the technology of the ANGIE project?
Yes, so we are very open. We are also always looking for feedback from the medical community. If people have more input for us on what we can do, and if people have more ideas, we're very, very open for any input. But for now in ANGIE, we really focus on strokes right now, because this is strokes. The reason why we think strokes are so important is that I had a conference in December where it was a medical conference, and they asked me as well, why did you choose strokes? And I said, well, there's a lot of them, which is an engineering answer, and they like doctors find that very funny, but it's true. I mean, strokes are the second leading cause of death and third leading cause of disability. So they have a really high impact on the society.
And how do you get to the target side of the stroke? I mean, you are obviously targeting the brain, but how do you get there?
So the idea, so yeah, exactly. We want to get our robot up into. I must say I gesture all the time, but I realize that people listening to this are not going to see it. So, but I'm gesturing. I'm trying to show vessels in my brain right now.
Okay.
The answer is, in order to get into this vasculature up in the brain, the answer is that we use magnetism. So we propel our micro robots magnetically. And there are obviously also other ways of propelling micro robots through the human body. We believe that magnetism is the best solution, and there are three very big reasons for it. The first one is it's biocompatible, or like magnetic fields, at least in the range that we are going to use them, are considered biocompatible. So we don't have to worry about heating up the body or exposing it to too much radiation or something. The second thing is scaling. This goes back to this concept of we as human experience different physics than an insect, for example. So magnetism really works very well on the small scale, and it's controllable. So we can control using electromagnetic systems. We can control these fields very, very well. And we actually already have a spin-off from our group. They are called Nanoflex Robotics, and they are also working on really commercializing these systems, especially for magnetic catheters at the moment. And they have some ambitious. I can only like anyone who listens to this ask to check them out. They do some fascinating work, and later on we thus already have this navigation platform that we can use when we want to commercialize our system. So yeah, I think obviously I think magnetism is the way to go. But I'm biased, right?
Because that's what I was going to ask. I mean, we said both in the beginning that you're a mechanical engineer. So is ANGIE a typical mechanical engineering problem?
No, you got me there. No, it's I would say it's definitely not typical engineering. When I started engineering long term, no, not some years ago, let's say, when I started in mechanical engineering, I thought I was going to work on, I don't know, big trucks and cars and so on. So it's that's not mechanical engineering, but also ANGIE isn't typical mechanical engineering. But I think the really fascinating thing about this field of microrobotics is that nobody can do it by themselves, right? We have just in our group, we have so many different professions. We have chemists, we have engineers, we have physicists, we have roboticists, we have material scientists. We have this broad range of expertise of people who really understand their field very well, and then we need to coordinate to really bring all these disciplines together and build a platform that incorporates all this. And I think this is the great thing about the EU projects as well. I think that these EU projects give us a platform where we can also collaborate with other universities, right? So in the ANGIE project, for example, we have University of Würzburg, and they're experts on the pharmacology, which was a skill that we didn't have as strongly before. And then we have University of Barcelona, who help us a lot with understanding how clot formation works and how clot dissolution works. And then we have in Porto experts on FEM simulation. And all these people together, when we collaborate on the scientific part, we can really make a product that we definitely wouldn't be able to make alone. And that's like the interdisciplinary aspect is, I think, so exciting. And on as well in the ANGIE project, we also have the social organization, right? We have SAFE, we have the Discovery Foundation, we have Experian, we have so many other organizations that also help us to have this network in place of professionals, of medical professionals, of people who can help us to translate this technology. So and they have a different perspective on things, right? So we were in this SAFE in this meeting the other day with SAFE, which is the Stroke Association for Europe. And we were talking about how many million of people suffer a stroke every year. And then one of the women from SAFE said, "Well, Fabian, you need to see each person suffering a stroke there's a family behind it, right? This is a person that gets their life impacted, and even if they survive the stroke and they get out well, they might, I don't know, suffer vascular dementia or something. This is like the load on the society is very high because behind each of these stroke cases there's a story, there's someone that has to be taken care for, there's a family that or friends that care about a person. So yeah. I think having all these different perspectives makes it very, very interesting.
Okay, so the burning question then is that after 2 years of running this program, this project, are there any results produced so far? Anything that the people would like to know based on the research that has been done?
Yes, yes, absolutely. We have a lot of results actually, and we are in the process, as required by our grant, in the process of generating intellectual property and publications from this. So I can't go into too much detail right now, but essentially we have developed this micro robotic platform that enables us to deliver drugs, and we are testing and improving it at the moment as well. And yeah, I think it's a bit sad. I can't go into too much detail, but we'll soon be able to publish all this, and then we can go into more detail. But definitely, we have a very, very cool delivery platform that we will release soon.
That's great. I have seen a lot of published work around nanorobots and in targeted drug delivery, but actually there are very, very few, despite the lots of research papers out there. There have been very, very few applications and very, very few devices tested on humans. So do you think that it is possible that we see this technology in use, the technology of ANGIE in use in humans in the next few years?
So I definitely think we will see this technology or a similar technology in human use. Definitely, I'm absolutely convinced of that. The big question is when, right? And you are absolutely right. There are so many works that don't make it to the translation, but I think this is also something that our advisors, that Brett and Salvador, really push us to do. They really make us think about our research and really ask the hard questions and go deep into the obstacles that you sometimes have in the translation of all this work. So yeah, I definitely think we will see this technology, and it's definitely our goal to also translate this technology into the hospitals. As I said, as you said, we are a EU project. We use taxpayers' money, and we feel that it's our responsibility also to make sure that the society profits of this research that we make. And also personally as an engineer, right? I want to make stuff that works and that people use, right? That's the most satisfying thing that an engineer can do. But yeah, no, I definitely think so.
But based on this, do you think that nanomedical devices or nanomedicine that already exists has revolutionized drug delivery in humans, or will it so in a few years?
Yeah, definitely. So I think in the past, especially in the past years, we've seen technologies emerging that have been long time in the making, and that people also were very critical of. I mean, if you think, for example, about the COVID pandemic, these mRNA vaccines, they are essentially nanotechnology, right? This is probably the first huge rollout of nanotechnology that we see. And it has saved so many lives and has profited humanity so much. So I think we already see these changes that the technology can make. Obviously, ANGIE is quite a bit of a different technology, but sometimes, like with this mRNA vaccines, we only notice afterwards that something big changed, right? So now we can see it. I think during the pandemics, nobody thought about, oh, this is the moment where nanotechnology helps us, but it was, and now we are all, or at least most of us, are very happy about it, right? So and I think it's going to be hopefully the same story with the micro robotic drug delivery, that we can use this technology also to really help the general public.
Great. As you said, we are in the beginning of using all this to start using nanomedicine actually in our daily lives, and we're going to see the results in the future. But since we are in the beginning, do you think that we should have any safety concerns about nanostructured carriers that are nano engineered?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe you're even the better expert on that than I am. But I think, like, from my point of view, definitely it's maybe we shouldn't be concerned, but we should be critical, right? As always in science, you need to be critical of the results you see. But on the other hand, we have to keep in mind that there are very good rules in place, right? The EMA and the FDA, the European and the US regulatory body for these medicines, including novel medicines, they are really on top of it, and they have very good frameworks. They have very good approval processes. They are extremely thorough when it comes to approving drugs, and they really make sure that these technologies are safe and safe to use in humans. So it's always good to ask the critical questions, but I think we can really also trust these regulatory bodies, because they do an amazing job.
Great. Thank you so much for all this information about this. I have one last question for you. What is this one thing that fascinated you during the ANGIE project, and at least till now?
Wow, that's a really good. I would say within, like, as an engineer, I had the opportunity to look a bit more into how the human body works, right? The one thing that really fascinated me were blood flows inside. So if you take the ICA, again, people can't see where I'm pointing, but I'm pointing like at the side of my throat. So the internal carotid artery, where the brain, where a lot of the blood goes up into the brain, there we have blood flows of 30 to 40 centimeters per second, right? And in the aorta, at the heart, we have something in the range of meters per second. And just from an engineering point of view, it's absolutely amazing that the human body can do this. And in the most cases, it can do this for what, 80, 90, 100 years. So the human body is very fascinating, I think, if you think about it. Yeah.
Great. So before we close this interview, do you have anything else to add?
Yes. Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you for this. Thanks for organizing this. This was a lot of fun. Actually, the first time I'm doing a podcast. Also, if there are any medical professionals listening to this, we always look for feedback. We are always happy if people reach out. We have a Twitter channel. The channel is @ANGIE. That's ANGIE. And then _ H2020. And we also have a LinkedIn page, which is ANGIE _ H2020. And yeah, if people want to have more information about our project and what we are up to, we are constantly updating the website, which is h2020-angie.eu. And yeah, we're always happy about discussions and people reaching out.
Great. Thank you. I would like to thank Mr. Landers for being our first guest today. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Stay tuned for more episodes.